Admiral stood on the bridge of his ship and watched his world burn. The screens showed everything, every death, every explosion, every scream. The Empire wanted the galaxy to see what they did to humans. They called it a lesson. They called it purification, called it murder. 10 billion people lived on Colony New Sol. It was a beautiful planet that humans had built from nothing over 60 years. They had cities that touched the clouds. They had farms that fed millions. They had schools where children learned to dream of stars. Now it was all turning to fire and ash. Gripped the railing so hard his knuckles turned white. His crew stood silent around him. No one could speak. No one could look away. The broadcast was everywhere. Every screen on every ship, every planet, every station in the galaxy showed the same thing: the wanted witnesses. The massive warships hung in orbit above New Sol like dark clouds. Their weapons fired again and again. Beams of purple light struck the surface below. Where the beams hit, cities disappeared. Mountains crumbled. Oceans boiled away into steam. The planet was screaming and could do nothing but watch. His daughter was down there. Sara was 12 years old. She had her mother's smile and her father's stubborn heart. She loved painting pictures of space. She wanted to be an explorer when she grew up. She wanted to see every star in the galaxy. Now she would never see anything again. A junior officer approached with shaking hands. The young man held a communication device. His face was wet with tears. "Admiral," the officer whispered, "there is a message for you from the surface, from your daughter." Took the device. His hands were steady even though his heart was breaking. He pressed play. Sora's face appeared on the small screen. She was hiding somewhere dark. Dust fell around her. The sound of explosions echoed in the background, but she was not crying. She was brave, just like he had taught her. "Papa," she said softly, "I know you are watching. I know you cannot help us. It is okay. I am not scared." She paused and wiped dirt from her cheek. "Mama is already gone. The building fell on her, but she told me to be brave. She told me to send you a message." Felt tears running down his face. He did not wipe them away. "Papa, do not be sad forever. Do not let them win by breaking your heart. Remember what you always told me. You said that humans never give up. You said we always find a way." Sora smiled, and it was the most beautiful and terrible thing had ever seen. "Find a way, Papa, for me, for Mama, for everyone." The screen shook violently. Sora looked up at something could not see. Her smile faded, but her eyes stayed strong. "I love you, Papa. I will wait for you among the stars." The transmission ended. Stood frozen for a long moment. The bridge was completely silent. Every officer, every soldier, every person on his ship had heard the message. They all looked at their admiral. They waited to see what he would do. Carefully put the device in his pocket close to his heart. He straightened his uniform. He lifted his head high. When he spoke, his voice was calm and clear. "Record everything," he ordered. "Every moment of this massacre, every ship that fires, every order they give. The galaxy may forget, but we will not." On the screens, the killing continued. The ships moved in perfect formation, systematic and cold. They were not fighting a war. They were cleaning a mess. To them, humans were insects, pests to be removed. The Empire had tolerated humanity for 80 years, using them as cheap labor and servants. Now they had decided that even that was too much. Emperor's voice echoed across every channel. He was an old with gray skin and 4 eyes that showed no warmth. He sat on a throne of black metal and spoke to the galaxy like a teacher scolding children. "Let this be a lesson to all inferior species," the Emperor declared. "The Empire does not tolerate defiance. The human colony refused to meet production demands. They spoke of rights. They spoke of freedom. Such words have no place in our perfect order. Today we remove this infection. Tomorrow the galaxy will be cleaner." Across the stars, hundreds of alien species watched in silence. Some were horrified. Some were relieved it was not them. None of them spoke against the Empire. They had ruled for 10,000 years. No one challenged them and lived. But on Earth, something was changing. In the capital city, President Moon watched the same broadcast. She was a small woman with gray hair and eyes that had seen too much. She had fought for human rights in the Empire for 30 years. She had believed in peace and diplomacy. She had trusted that words could change things. Now she watched 10 billion of her people die, and something inside her turned to iron. Her advisors gathered around her, generals, scientists, leaders from every nation on Earth. They all waited for her to speak. Some of them were crying, some were shaking with rage. All of them felt the same thing. The world had changed. There was no going back. President stood slowly. She looked at the screen one last time. A city was collapsing. Millions of voices cried out and then went silent. She turned away. They wanted to teach us fear, she said quietly. They wanted to show the galaxy that humans are weak, that we will bow, that we will accept our death and thank them for it. She walked to the window and looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, her people were dying. Somewhere out there, the Empire was laughing. They have made a mistake, President continued. The worst mistake in their 10,000 years of rule. They have shown us exactly what they are. They have united every human with a single broadcast, and they have given us something more powerful than any weapon. She turned to face her advisors. Her eyes were dry now. Her voice was steel. They have given us a reason. In orbit above the burning colony, Admiral received word that all transmissions from the surface had stopped. 10 billion voices, silenced forever. He closed his eyes for one moment. He let himself feel the pain. He let himself remember Sora's smile. Then he opened his eyes, and he was no longer a grieving father. He was a weapon waiting to be aimed. Set course for Earth, he commanded. Maximum speed. The ship turned away from the dead world. Behind them, the fleet celebrated their victory. They sent messages of congratulation to each other. They joked about how easy it had been. They did not notice the single human ship leaving the system. They did not see the storm that was coming. On 100 worlds, humans watched the broadcast end. They saw their colony become a graveyard. They saw the Emperor smile and wave his hand as if swatting a fly. And in that moment, 12 billion humans made the same silent promise. The galaxy had seen humanity at its weakest. Soon, it would see humanity at its strongest. And the Empire would learn that some lessons come with a price too terrible to pay. 3 days after the massacre, Earth went silent. The Empire noticed immediately. Every communication channel that connected Earth to the rest of the galaxy simply stopped working. Trade ships that tried to approach Earth's system were turned away by automated warnings. Diplomatic messages went unanswered. It was as if an entire planet had simply vanished. In the Imperial Palace on Velar Prime, Emperor laughed when his advisors told him the news. "The insects are hiding," he said with amusement. "They have finally accepted their place. Let them cower on their little rock. When we are ready, we will clean them too." His advisors nodded and agreed as they always did. No one questioned the Emperor. No one suggested that silence might mean something else. They were too confident in their own power. They had ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years. What could one small species do against that? Far across the stars, Admiral's ship entered Earth's solar system. The journey had taken 3 days at maximum speed, 3 days of silence, 3 days of planning, 3 days of cold, patient rage. When his ship passed Mars, saw something that made him stop breathing. Ships, thousands of ships. They hung in the darkness between Mars and the asteroid belt, hidden from any scanner the Empire might use. But these were not old cargo vessels or patrol boats. These were warships, beautiful, deadly warships that had never seen before. His communication screen flickered to life. A woman's face appeared. She was young, maybe 30 years old, with short black hair and oil stains on her cheek. Her eyes were tired but burning with purpose. "Admiral," she said, "I am O, Chief Engineer of Project Ember. Welcome home, sir. We have been waiting for you." Stared at the fleet outside his window, his voice came out rough. "How long have these ships existed?" Smiled, but there was no joy in it, only grim satisfaction. 50 years, Admiral. We started building the day we joined the Empire. We never trusted them, not for one moment. She explained everything as ship docked with the main station. For 50 years, Earth's mines had worked in secret. They built hidden factories in asteroids. They developed technology that the Empire did not know existed. They created weapons that could break through shields. They designed engines faster than anything in the galaxy. And they waited. "We always knew this day would come," said as she led through the station. "The Empire sees us as animals, useful animals, but animals. We knew that one day they would decide we were not even worth keeping alive, so we prepared." Walked past rows of gleaming warships. Workers moved around them, making final adjustments. The ships were sleek and dark, built for speed and destruction. Each one carried enough firepower to destroy an Imperial cruiser. "How many?" asked. 10,000 Fury-class warships, 50,000 support vessels, and weapons the Empire cannot imagine." Stopped walking and turned to face him. "We have been building an army, Admiral. We just needed a reason to use it." They reached a large meeting room deep in the station. Inside, the most powerful people on Earth were waiting. General Menu, the supreme commander of Earth's military, stood at the head of a long table. He was an old soldier with white hair and a face made of stone. Beside him sat President Moon, who had aged 10 years in 3 days. There were others too, scientists, admirals, engineers, strategists, the best humanity had to offer. They all turned to look at as he entered. "Admiral," General Menu said, "we have watched your record from Colony New Sol. We know what you lost. We are sorry." Nodded once. He did not want their sympathy. He wanted something else. "What do you need from me?" he asked. President stood from her chair. She walked around the table until she stood in front of him. Her eyes searched his face, looking for something. Whatever she found seemed to satisfy her. "We need a commander," she said. "Someone who understands what is at stake. Someone who will not stop until this is finished. Someone with enough anger to burn an empire and enough control to do it properly." She paused. "We want you to lead our fleet, Admiral. We want you to show the galaxy what happens when you murder humanity's children." Thought of Sora, her smile, her last words, her promise to wait for him among the stars. "Yes," he said simply. The next hour was filled with information. A thin man with nervous hands explained the Ghost Network. It was a communication system that used quantum technology the Empire had never discovered. Humans across the galaxy could talk to each other without any knowing. "We have people everywhere," said. "In every major Empire system, in their shipyards, in their command centers. They have been reporting to us for decades. We know every weakness they have." Lieutenant Park, a young woman with a scar across her jaw, commanded these hidden agents. She called them the Shadow Corps. Thousands of humans who had pretended to be loyal servants of the Empire while secretly mapping every important location. "When the time comes," said coldly, "we will cut off the head of the snake before they even know the knife is out." Scientist Shin, a soft-spoken woman with kind eyes, showed them the weapons. The cannon could crack any shield they had. The ghost missiles could not be detected by any scanner. The Fury engines let human ships move twice as fast as Imperial vessels. "They think they are the most advanced species in the galaxy," said. "They stopped improving centuries ago. We never stopped." Absorbed all of this information. His mind was already working, planning, calculating. He saw the pieces of a strategy forming. It would not be easy. The Empire was vast and powerful, but they were also arrogant. They did not expect resistance. They certainly did not expect what humanity was about to unleash. "There is one more thing," General Menu said. He touched a control panel and a hologram appeared above the table. It showed a network of stations orbiting Prime. This is the Empire's early warning system. If we attack, these stations will alert every fleet in the galaxy. We will lose the element of surprise. Studied the hologram. The stations were heavily defended. Any attack would be suicide. "I will do it," said a voice from the corner. Everyone turned. A young captain stood there. His name was and recognized him. He had served on the New Sol Defense Force. He had escaped on one of the last refugee ships. His entire family had not been so lucky. "One ship can reach those stations if it moves fast enough," continued. His voice was calm, but his eyes burned with something dark. "The Empire does not expect an attack. They do not expect anyone to be that bold. I can disable the network, but I will not be coming back." Silence filled the room. Everyone understood what he was offering. President spoke first. "Captain, we cannot ask you to die." Smiled sadly. "You are not asking, Madam President. I am volunteering. My wife and children died on New Sol. I have nothing left except this. Let me give our people a chance. Let me be useful one last time." Walked to the young captain. He placed a hand on his shoulder. "Your name will be remembered, Captain. When we win this war, your sacrifice will be written in the stars." Straightened his back. "That is all I ask, Admiral." In the days that followed, 12 billion humans made a choice. Across Earth and every human settlement in the galaxy, people volunteered for military service. Factories that had made toys now made weapons. Schools that had taught children now trained soldiers. Musicians, artists, farmers, and teachers all put aside their old lives and prepared for war. They were not soldiers by nature. Humans had always preferred peace. They liked building things and making art and raising families. But they had learned a terrible lesson from the Empire. Some enemies do not want peace. Some enemies only understand one thing: force. Emperor received reports that Earth was still silent. He dismissed them with a wave of his hand. He was already planning the next purification. Perhaps the human settlements on mining worlds would be next. They were becoming too expensive to maintain anyway. He did not know that in the darkness between stars, 10,000 warships were preparing to launch. He did not know that across his empire, human agents were receiving their final orders. He did not know that his early warning network had been targeted for destruction. He did not know that the insects he had tried to crush were not hiding in fear. They were preparing their revenge. And when it came, the galaxy would tremble. 6 months passed like a held breath. In the asteroid belt beyond Mars, 10,000 Fury-class warships made their final preparations. Admiral walked among them daily, inspecting every ship, meeting every crew. He had become a legend among the soldiers, the man who had lost everything and turned his grief into steel. They followed him not because they were ordered to, but because they believed in him. Each warship carried a name painted on its hull, not traditional names like victory or freedom, but personal names, names of the dead. 10 billion people had died on Colony New Sol, and humanity had not forgotten a single one. His flagship was called Vengeance. His crew had chosen the name. They said it was for the colony that had burned, but knew the truth. It was for his daughter, who had loved the stars and now lived among them forever. In the main hangar of the flagship, found his soldiers gathered for morning inspection. They stood in perfect rows, their faces serious and determined. Many of them had lost family in the massacre. Others had simply watched the broadcast and felt something break inside them. They were not professional soldiers. 6 months ago, they had been teachers, engineers, farmers, and artists. Now they were weapons. A young woman approached with a salute. Her name badge said private, and she looked barely old enough to be out of school. Her eyes, however, were old. The massacre had aged everyone. "Admiral," she said, "I wanted you to know, my grandmother was on New Sol. She raised me after my parents died. She was 93 years old and still tending her garden when the bombs fell. Paused to steady her voice. I carry her name on my uniform. When we fight, she fights with me. Looked down the rows of soldiers. He saw similar patches on every uniform. Names of the dead carried into battle by the living. What was her name, Private? He asked. Soon, she loved flowers, sir. She said they proved that beauty could survive anywhere. Nodded slowly. When this is over, Private, we will plant gardens on the ashes of the Empire, for your grandmother, for all of them. His eyes shone with tears she refused to let fall. Yes, sir, I would like that. Across the fleet, similar scenes played out every day. Humanity had transformed its grief into purpose. They trained harder than any military force in history. They learned to fly ships that moved like lightning. They practiced with weapons that could crack planets. They became something new, something dangerous. In the intelligence center aboard a hidden station, Lieutenant Park coordinated the final phase of the Shadow Core operation. Holographic maps covered every wall, showing the entire Empire. Red dots marked the positions of her agents, thousands of them spread across hundreds of worlds. Report from Agent 447 on Velar Prime, her assistant announced. She has completed mapping of the Imperial Guard headquarters, all security codes confirmed. Marked another location on her map. The Empire had no idea how deeply they had been infiltrated. Human servants worked in every important building. Human slaves operated in every major shipyard. For decades, they had smiled and bowed and pretended to be obedient, all while memorizing everything. Status of the other species? Asked. Her assistant pulled up a new display. 47 species have agreed to rise when we give the signal. The Tauren, and others. All of them have been crushed under rule. All of them want freedom. Former diplomat had spent months reaching out to these oppressed peoples. She had traveled in secret, meeting leaders in hidden places, promising them something the galaxy had not seen in 10,000 years. A chance to fight back. They made many enemies, had explained too. They just never gave anyone hope before. We give them hope and they give us millions of allies. In the weapons laboratory, Dr. Shin completed the final tests on the cannon. The weapon glowed with contained power, beautiful and terrible. She had spent 20 years developing it in secret. Now it was ready. One shot can penetrate any shield the Empire has, explained to her team. It uses principles they have never discovered. When we fire this, they will not even understand what hit them. Her young assistant, a brilliant man named Ryu, ran the final calculations. Doctor, the weapon is performing beyond expectations. Should we inform the Admiral? Smiled softly. Yes, tell him that when the time comes, we can crack open there like an egg. In a small room aboard the main station, Captain prepared for his mission. His ship was small and fast, designed for one purpose. He would fly to the Empire's early warning network and destroy it before the main attack began. It was a suicide mission. He had accepted this months ago. A knock came at his door. Admiral entered. Captain, said quietly, I wanted to speak with you before tomorrow. Stood at attention, Admiral. At ease. Walked to the small window that looked out at the stars. I want you to know that what you are doing matters. Without you, thousands of our ships would die in the first minutes of battle. You are saving them. Nodded, I know, sir. That is why I volunteered. I also want you to know that I understand. Turned to face him. I lost my daughter. You lost your wife and children. We carry the same weight. For a moment, the two men simply looked at each other. Two fathers who had buried their children. Two soldiers who had turned their sorrow into weapons. When I reach the network, said slowly, I will think of them, my family. I will tell them that I am coming to find them, that the waiting is almost over. Stepped forward and embraced the younger man. It was not a military gesture. It was something deeper. Two broken hearts finding strength in each other. Go with honor, Captain. The stars will remember your name. The night before the attack stood alone on the bridge of vengeance. The fleet stretched out before him, 10,000 points of light against the darkness. Tomorrow those lights would move. Tomorrow the war would begin. He pulled out his daughter's last letter. He had read it so many times that the words were burned into his memory, but he needed to see her handwriting. He needed to feel the paper she had touched. "Papa," the letter said, "I know you are busy with important things, but I wanted to tell you about my day. I painted a picture of our family standing on a new planet, you and Mama and me looking at 3 suns. My teacher said it was very good. She said I have your determination and Mama's imagination. I hope that is true. I want to be like both of you when I grow up. I love you, Papa. Come home soon. Sarah." Folded the letter carefully and put it back in his pocket. He had not been home when the Empire attacked. He had not been there to protect her. That guilt would never fade. But he could honor her memory. He could make her sacrifice mean something. He activated the ship's recording system. His image would be broadcast to every screen in the galaxy when the attack began. The had made the massacre a show. He would make the revenge a show too. "People of the galaxy," he said into the recorder, 6 months ago you watched the Empire murder 10 billion innocent humans. They called it purification. They called it cleaning. They smiled and laughed while children burned. You did nothing. You said nothing. You were afraid." He paused, letting his words sink in. "Today that changes. Today you will see what happens to those who murder humanity. Today you will learn that we are not insects to be crushed. We are not slaves to be killed when we become inconvenient. We are humans, and we have come for justice." He stopped the recording. Tomorrow the galaxy would hear his words. Tomorrow the Empire would learn that some prey bites back. On the bridge beside him his tactical officer approached. "Admiral, all ships report ready. The fleet is waiting for your command." Looked at the stars one last time. Somewhere out there his daughter was watching, waiting, believing in him. "Signal all ships," Admiral said. "Operation Fury begins at dawn." The fleet stirred like a waking giant. 10,000 engines powered up. 10,000 crews took their positions. 10,000 ships prepared to tear an empire apart. Humanity had been pushed to the edge of extinction. They had watched their children die. They had felt the boot of the Empire on their necks. Now they were going to push back. Emperor was hosting a celebration when the sky fell. It had been exactly 6 months since the purification of Colony New Sol. The Emperor had declared it a holiday across the entire Empire. Music played in the Imperial Palace. Nobles drank expensive wines and congratulated each other on finally dealing with the human problem. The mood was festive, self-satisfied, completely unaware. In the grand throne room, Emperor raised his glass. His 4 eyes gleamed with amusement as he addressed his guests. "To a cleaner galaxy," he announced. "To the removal of inferior species. To the eternal glory of the Empire." The nobles cheered and drank. Servants moved silently among them, refilling glasses and offering food. Some of those servants were human. They kept their heads down and their faces blank, just as they had been trained. But inside, they were counting the minutes. On the far side of the galaxy, Captain flew his small ship toward the Empire's early warning network. His hands were steady on the controls. His heart was calm. He had made peace with death months ago. Now he just had to complete his mission. The network consisted of 12 stations arranged in a perfect ring around the Empire's core systems. Each station could detect any ship within 1,000 light years. Together, they had protected the Empire from surprise attacks for 3,000 years. No one had ever gotten past them. Ship was different. Engineer O had designed it specifically for this mission. It was so small and fast that the station's sensors could not track it. By the time they saw him, it would be too late. He approached the first station and armed his weapons. The explosives he carried were enough to destroy a small moon. He would not survive the blast, but neither would the station. "For my wife," he whispered, "for my children, for New Soul." He activated his communication system one final time. His message would reach Admiral just before the main attack began. "Admiral, this is Captain. I am beginning my run. The first station will fall in 3 minutes. By the time the Empire realizes what is happening, half their network will be gone. Tell my people that I died well. Tell them that the path is clear." He closed the channel and accelerated toward his target. In the Imperial Palace, Emperor was in the middle of another toast when every screen in the room flickered. The lights dimmed for a moment. The nobles looked around in confusion. Then Admiral's face appeared on every screen in the galaxy. "People of the galaxy," his recorded voice echoed through the throne room. "6 months ago, you watched the Empire murder 10 billion innocent humans. They called it purification. They smiled and laughed while children burned." Emperor dropped his glass. It shattered on the marble floor. "Today that changes. Today you will see what happens to those who murder humanity. Today you will learn that we are not insects to be crushed. We are humans, and we have come for justice." The screens showed something impossible. Human warships, thousands of them, emerging from faster-than-light jumps across 200 Empire systems simultaneously. Ships that should not exist, technology that should not exist, an attack that should not be possible. "This is impossible," Emperor screamed. "Where are my alerts? Where are my warnings?" His generals scrambled for their communication devices. None of them worked properly. The early warning network was gone, destroyed by a single brave captain who had traded his life for humanity's revenge. Across the Empire, chaos erupted. On Velar Prime itself, 10 massive human warships appeared in orbit. They opened fire immediately. The planetary defense platforms tried to respond, but their systems malfunctioned. Engineer O had hacked them remotely months ago. Instead of firing at the human ships, they turned their weapons on the defense fleet. In the palace, the human servants revealed themselves. They had been members of the Shadow Corps all along. With practiced efficiency, they pulled weapons from hidden places and moved through the building. Lieutenant Park had trained them for this moment. 15 high admirals died in their beds that night, killed by servants they had never noticed. On 100 other worlds, similar scenes played out. Human agents sabotaged shipyards. Human infiltrators destroyed communication centers. Human slaves who had been ignored for decades struck with precision and fury. Admiral stood on the bridge of vengeance and watched the battle unfold. His tactical displays showed green dots overwhelming red ones across the galaxy. The Empire was collapsing faster than even he had expected. "Reports," he commanded. His tactical officer, Commander IM, read from her screen. "First wave successful, Admiral. 90% of targets hit. Enemy losses are catastrophic. They are trying to organize a response, but without their communication network, they cannot coordinate." "And the allied species?" "The Tauran fleet has engaged Empire forces in Sector 7. They are attacking the slave processing centers. They have liberated 3 prison worlds already." Looked up with something like wonder in her eyes. "Admiral, 47 species are rising against the Empire. It is exactly as Diplomat predicted. We gave them hope and they found their courage." Allowed himself a small nod of satisfaction. "Continue the attack. No mercy, no hesitation. We end this tonight." In the space around Velar Prime, Pilot Song was fighting for her life. Her Fury-class fighter darted between enemy ships, firing with deadly accuracy. She had lost count of how many vessels she had destroyed. Her squadron was supposed to provide cover for the capital ship assault, but they had been separated in the chaos of battle. Now she was alone, facing an entire enemy carrier. The carrier was massive, big enough to hold thousands of fighters and crew. It was moving toward a cluster of human refugee ships that had not yet escaped the system. 3 million humans were on those ships. families, children, the same kind of people who had died on New Sol. Did not hesitate. She accelerated toward the carrier, pushing her engines beyond safe limits. Warning alarms screamed in her cockpit. She ignored them. Her weapons locked onto the carrier's bridge, the only spot weak enough for her small guns to penetrate. "Control, this is Pilot Song," she transmitted. "I am engaging the enemy carrier. It is threatening refugee ships. I may not survive, but I will stop it." Admiral's voice came through her speakers personally. "Pilot Song, negative. Fall back and wait for support." Smiled as she flew into the carrier's firing range. "With respect, Admiral, those are our people. I will not let them die while I could do something." She fired everything she had. Her shots hit the carrier's bridge at the same moment the carrier's guns hit her. Her ship exploded in a ball of fire, but her missiles continued on. They penetrated the bridge shields and detonated inside the command center. Without guidance, the carrier lost control. It tumbled away from the refugee ships and crashed into an asteroid field. 3 million humans lived because one pilot refused to run. On the Bridge of Vengeance, Admiral watched the signal disappear from his tactical display. He closed his eyes for a moment. "Mark her position," he said quietly. "When this is over, we will build a monument there. Pilot Song died a hero tonight." The battle continued through the night. Human ships moved with speed and precision the Empire had never seen. They attacked without warning and vanished before counterattacks could form. Their weapons tore through shields like paper. Their tactics confused and overwhelmed experienced commanders. By morning, the Empire had lost 60% of its entire military. 3,000 years of dominance, broken in a single night. Emperor sat in his damaged throne room surrounded by rubble and silence. His generals were dead. His fleet was destroyed. His early warning network was gone. His communication systems were hacked. His slave populations were revolting. Everything he had built was crumbling around him. A surviving advisor approached him carefully. The emperor's eyes had gone wild with shock and disbelief. "Your Majesty," the advisor whispered. "How? They were primitives, they were insects. How could they do this?" Emperor stared at the screens showing his empire burning. He remembered laughing at reports of Earth silence. He remembered joking about cleaning the rest of the human settlements. He remembered believing that he had crushed them forever with a single broadcast. Now he understood the truth, the terrible, horrible truth. "They were never primitives," he said slowly. "They were never insects." His voice cracked with dawning horror. "They were waiting. They were always waiting, and we gave them a reason to stop." Across the galaxy, humanity watched their fleet advance. They saw the impossible become real. They saw an empire that had ruled for 10,000 years crumble in a single night. And they felt something they had not felt since the massacre. Hope. The war was not over. The Emperor still lived. Many battles remained to be fought, but the first blow had landed and it had shaken the galaxy to its core. Humanity had announced its presence to the stars, not with diplomacy, not with trade, but with fire and fury and righteous vengeance. The Empire had wanted to teach the galaxy a lesson about power. Now humanity was teaching one of their own. 2 years of war changed everything. The first night's attack had broken the spine of the Empire, but it had not killed the beast. What followed was the bloodiest conflict the galaxy had ever seen. Both sides fought with desperation. They fought because they refused to accept their fall. Humanity fought because they could not afford to lose. Admiral had not slept properly in months. His hair had turned completely gray. Lines of exhaustion carved deep paths across his face, but his eyes remained sharp and his will remained unbreakable. He stood on the Bridge of Vengeance and watched the siege of Velar Prime unfold. The Empire's was the last major stronghold. For 6 months, human ships had surrounded it, slowly tightening the noose. They had pulled every remaining fleet to defend their capital. Billions of soldiers waited on the surface. They would fight to the last breath. "Status report," said. Commander IM, his most trusted officer, stepped forward, had earned his rank through blood and sacrifice. During the darkest hour of the war, he had defended Earth itself with only 50 ships against 500. Through brilliant tactics and impossible courage, he had held the line until reinforcements arrived. Now he served at side. "The blockade is holding, Admiral. Enemy supply lines are completely cut. Our intelligence suggests they have maybe 2 months of food and fuel left." Paused. "They are getting desperate. We intercepted communications about using their civilians as shields." His jaw tightened. "They murdered our civilians without hesitation. Now they want to hide behind their own." He shook his head slowly. "We are not like them. We will find another way." The war had tested humanity's soul as much as its strength. There had been moments when revenge seemed like the only answer. Moments when soldiers wanted to repay the massacre with massacres of their own. Each time, leaders had stopped them. "We fight for justice," he had told his troops many times. "Not revenge. If we become monsters to defeat monsters, then we have lost everything." It was not easy. Every human carried the memory of new soul. They had watched their families burn. They had heard the Emperor laugh. The desire for blood ran deep. But humanity chose a harder path. They targeted military forces, not cities. They accepted surrenders, even when their hearts screamed to refuse. They rebuilt worlds they captured instead of burning them. The oppressed species who fought alongside them noticed this. The Tauren, whose children had been taken as slaves for generations, watched humans feed prisoners instead of executing them. The Whos had been strip-mined by the Empire saw humans establish fair governments on liberated planets. "You are strange creatures," the Tauren ambassador had told once. "You have every right to hate, yet you choose mercy." Had shrugged. "Hate is a fire. If you feed it forever, eventually it burns you too. We want to win the war and then live in peace. That means building something better, not just destroying something old." The war had not been without its costs. Millions of humans had died. Ships that had launched with hope had become tombs floating in space. Families had been torn apart. Children had grown up knowing nothing but war. Dr. Shin's cannon had destroyed the Empire's largest shipyard, ending their ability to rebuild their fleet. But the operation had cost the lives of 1,000 soldiers, including Doctor herself. She had stayed behind to ensure the weapon fired correctly, knowing she would not escape. Engineer O had worked herself to exhaustion keeping the fleet operational. She had collapsed 3 times and refused to stop each time. Her hands had become from working on damaged ships, but every day, human vessels flew because of her dedication. Lieutenant Park had continued running the Shadow Corps, coordinating intelligence across 100 worlds. The stress had turned her hair white at 32 years old, but her agents had prevented dozens of Empire counterattacks by providing crucial information. On the front lines, Commander had lost his younger brother in a battle for a mining world. He had not taken a single day to grieve. There would be time for tears after victory. President Moon had refused every peace offer the Empire made. Some of them had been tempting. Return to the old relationship. Accept limited autonomy. Stop the killing and return to normal. "Normal," she had replied to the latest offer. "Normal was watching our children die while the galaxy applauded. Normal was being slaves in all but name. We will never go back to normal. This ends only one way. Complete freedom for humanity and every species the Empire has crushed." The Free Coalition, as the allied species called themselves, had grown stronger each month. What had started as 47 species was now over 100. Former slaves, conquered peoples, and oppressed populations from across the galaxy had joined the fight. They saw in humanity's resistance something they had never dared to believe possible, a chance to break free. Now the final battle approached. Admiral looked at the planet on his screens. Velar Prime was beautiful in a cold way. Its cities were ancient and grand. Its history stretched back 10,000 years. It was the heart of an empire that had ruled the galaxy without challenge. Until now, Admiral said quietly, we received a communication from the Emperor. He wants to discuss surrender terms. Turned from the window, something flashed in his eyes. Put it through. Emperor's face appeared on the screen. He looked terrible. 2 years of war had aged him decades. His gray skin was now almost white. His 4 eyes were sunken and desperate. The arrogance that had defined him was completely gone. Admiral, the Emperor said, his voice was hoarse. I am prepared to negotiate. Name your terms. Stood very still for a long moment. He thought about his daughter. He thought about the 10 billion people who had died on New Sol. He thought about all the families torn apart across 2 years of bloody war. Terms, he said slowly. You want to discuss terms? Yes, whatever you want, reparations, territory, autonomy. I will give humanity whatever it asks. Just stop this madness, please. His face remained stone. 2 years ago, you killed my daughter. You killed billions of innocent people. You broadcast it to the galaxy like entertainment. Did those people get to negotiate terms, Emperor? Did those children get to ask for mercy? The Emperor flinched. That was a mistake. I see that now. I was wrong, I admit it. But continuing this war helps no one. More people die every day. Do you not want peace? I want justice, replied. And justice requires more than words. You will surrender unconditionally. You will stand trial for your crimes against humanity and the other species you have oppressed. Your empire will be dissolved. Your people will live under a new government that respects all species equally. Those are not terms for negotiation. Those are requirements. The Emperor's eyes widened. You would destroy 10,000 years of civilization. You destroyed 10 billion lives in a single day. Your civilization has murdered and enslaved countless beings across the galaxy. It does not deserve to continue. Leaned forward. But unlike you, we offer something you never gave your victims. We offer your people a future. Surrender and civilians will be treated fairly. Your species will survive and eventually thrive in a free galaxy. Fight, and we will break through your defenses and end this our way. The Emperor stared at him for a long moment. Behind that aged face could see calculations happening. Could the Empire still win? Was there any hope left? The answer must have been no, because the Emperor's shoulders slumped. Very well, Admiral. I agree to your requirements. I will surrender personally to you. I ask only that you show mercy to my people. We will show them more mercy than you showed ours, said. That is a promise. He closed the channel and turned to his officers. They were staring at him with expressions of disbelief and growing hope. Signal the fleet, Admiral commanded. The Emperor has agreed to surrender. Prepare landing parties. We go to Velar Prime to accept their capitulation in person. Commander stepped forward. Admiral, it could be a trap. Yes, it could. Looked at the planet on his screens. But if we refuse to take risks for peace, we become as trapped by war as they are. Prepare my shuttle. I will meet the Emperor face to face. Across the fleet, soldiers heard the news. The war was ending. They had won. For a moment, no one knew how to react. They had been fighting for so long that peace seemed like a foreign concept. Then the cheering started. It spread from ship to ship like wildfire. Humans who had lost everything embraced each other and wept. The allied species raised their voices in celebration. 2 years of blood and sacrifice had led to this moment. Admiral stood alone on the bridge and watched the celebration through his window. He did not cheer. He did not smile. His thoughts were with the dead. Sarah, he whispered to the stars, we did it. It is almost over. He pulled out his daughter's letter and held it close to his heart. Soon he would stand before the being who had ordered her death. Soon he would look into the Emperor's eyes and deliver justice. Not revenge, justice. For Sarah, for New Sol, for every innocent life the Empire had taken. The final chapter was about to begin.